1 minute until showtime. Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Now, from the world's most famous beach, from where beach racing began, it's the Legends of Racing radio show. Live from racing's North Turn Beach Bar and Grill in Ponce Inlet, Florida. The Legends of Racing radio show. And your host, Bu McKim.
I don't know. I love the sport, right? And I love the things that it stands for. I love the people, and I have a lot left to give. I want to, I've committed my life to this, and you make sacrifices for things that you love. And I've made a lot of sacrifices in my life. My family's made a lot of sacrifices for us to be able to call this a job. And so I want to continue to be able to provide value to the industry and to our team. And, I love the folks that I work with. I mean, we were talking about this morning. Our folks at Daytona are like family. And I think that's something we're all really proud of, that we get to do this and be on this journey together. So, talking like Andrew Booth, he's been at Daytona for such a long period of time. And I remember when I was a PR rep, I'd come to the media center and, everybody would be like, oh, Andrew Booth, and you need to see, and you'd be like, oh, no. And now having the opportunity to work with him and just, sharing his passion for what we do. And you can go down the line of people. Andrew Gertis, he's been the president at Darlington Raceway. He now runs our operation department, which is one of the biggest jobs in our sport. Sean Belgrade's been with the company 25 years and has had a number of experiences. You could go down the list of people that, I get to call coworkers and teammates, and that's such an honor.
Really. We're going to take a break here for just a second. We'll be back in just a minute or two with our good friend Chip Wile.
Help me out!
The caution flag is out. Time for a break. We'll be right back with the Legends of Racing radio show. Welcome to Homewood Suites by Hilton in Daytona Beach. You're right in the middle of all the action. Daytona International Speedway, the airport, One Daytona, Florida's newest entertainment and retail destination, and of course, the world's most famous beach. You'll love our newly remodeled 1- and 2-bedroom suites, along with our popular King Studios. You won't need your full kitchen, as Homewood Suites Daytona serves up complimentary breakfast and evening social. It's like home away from home. Go to HomewoodDaytona.com for Homewood Suites by Hilton in Daytona Beach. We're back from where it all began, racing's original North Turn Beach Bar and Grill. The Legends of Racing radio show continues with your host, Buzz McKim.
Thank you, everyone. I certainly do appreciate that. Okay. I do appreciate that. We're here with the president of Daytona International Speedway, Mr. Chip Wile, and we got a question here from one of the audience, and right after the halfway point here, we get the cross flags, we're going to have that person come up and ask you that question.
Okay.
And it's not very incriminating. I don't think you'll be worried about it, but it's very timely, I think, and I'm looking forward to what your answer is. With the expansion of the Speedway, when they built the new stands, made it into a stadium and all that renovation, that construction project cost 100 times more than it cost to build the Speedway back in 1958. They built the whole track for $4 million. The expansion was $400 million. So that kind of keeps you a little busy trying to fill that place up, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. What Joey Chitwood, Lisa France Kennedy, John Saunders, and the team did to the vision they had behind really transforming it from a grandstand into a stadium is nothing short of spectacular. And it really has changed the way people view coming to an event at our racetrack, because, before you were used to climbing stairs and really getting, if it rained, which sometimes it does here in the summer, you get, you get a little bit of water dropped on you. Now you go and you can ride escalators and elevators, and you got Wi-Fi, you got, wider, more comfortable seats. You have concourse areas like you would see at any other stadium around the country or around the world. But that's what Daytona deserves. The Daytona 500, the Rolex 24, the Coke Series Sugar Barn, any event that we have there is the best of that discipline. And we need to have the facility that represents that. And I've heard Julie Giese say this before. Before we did the Daytona Rising project, the race propped up the facility, and now the facility complements all the races that we host there. So, those are the things that we got to continue to do, not only here in Daytona, but across our industry. And you're seeing that with the $200 million project that we're doing right now in Phoenix. That should be complete before November. We also just commissioned a $40 million project in Richmond. They'll be complete before they race there in the fall. So you're seeing our leadership continue to reinvest in our facilities, because we recognize that in order to continue to evolve as a sport, you got to have that experience for your fans. And man, it's really paying dividends. And I think the work that the team here did with the Rising Project certainly gave our board confidence that we could do these in other places and make it work. And I tell you, I remember one of my first weeks here. My wife and kids were here. We were in a condo, beachside. And my kids didn't understand that, why they had to go to bed at 8 o'clock. And I said, because everybody else's building's here on vacation. We actually are living here. And this old woman came up to me, and she gave me a hug. And I hugged her back. And she said, I just want you to know how much I appreciate all that the Speedway's done to enhance the experiences here. I wouldn't have been able to continue to go to the races if it weren't for the escalators and all the amenities that you guys have implemented with this new project. And that's just one of 1,000 stories of people that have really appreciated the work and the thought that went into redeveloping the project or the property. And it's a great talking point, but it truly is something that we live and breathe every day. We want to continue to evolve, and we're not stopping just with the $400 million. Since we finished the project, completed it, we've invested another $6 or $8 million in the property, just continuing to tweak and work, and that's something we're really proud of.
Yeah, you should be. And with the name like Daytona, people expect the best. And you guys certainly have stepped up, and you're keeping that going. It's funny. A number of years ago, someone had asked Humpy Wheeler what makes a difference between a speedway and a super speedway. And, of course, this was way back when the facilities aren't what they were today. And his answer was flush toilets. We've come a long way, haven't we?
Yeah, we've come a long way. Yeah. I didn't realize that was the reason. Andrew, we actually could flush toilets here, man. It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
One thing, your events are so diversified. You've got so much going on. Your Country 500, and I was thinking, oh yeah, that's right. Last year, you guys had American Ninja Warrior there.
Yeah,
that was
a really cool event. So it was a project that we worked on when I first got here, and it set up perfectly for that kind of event, because they typically have to go downtown to a city and shut down streets, and it's an all-night event. So they set up for a week, and then the contestants start at dusk, and they run all through the night until the sun comes up, and they recycle the audience every 2 hours. So I was there all night, and at 3:30 in the morning, we're all a little blurry-eyed. We're trying to figure out how many more contestants we got to run through. And I saw this lady with 2 6-year-olds show up, and they were so excited. And what the thought behind that for us is that we want to showcase our facility, and that's a very different audience than the folks that typically tune into the races. So for us to be able to showcase not only the outside, but then they did a lot of work showcasing the inside as well. Ben Kennedy, Lisa's son, was a participant and gave the host some rides. So it was a really unique way to promote the facility to a different demo, and that's what we're continuing to do. You talk about the Country 500. The goal for that is, to introduce a younger demographic that typically isn't interested in racing to our facility, and then, with the hopes that they have a great experience and they'll come back and try out some of our core competencies in the 500 or the Rolex or some other event that we host, and we've seen some success with that. And they do get the experience of camping and how we treat our guests while they're on site. And really, I tell people all the time, it's like coming to a race, but rather than seeing race cars, you're seeing incredible country music stars performing. So those are the kind of events that we're spending some time trying to chase and look at. Using our facility in a non-traditional way is something that we've been challenged with doing, and I think we're doing a nice job.
Well, one of the funniest stories I heard about the early days of the Speedway was the Tri-Oval area had a football field there at one time, first couple of years of operation, and one of the very, very first events that they held there was a Friday afternoon football game, and it was between Father Lopez High School and Bishop Moore High School out of Orlando, and the concessionaires forgot that it's Friday, and Catholics don't eat meat on Friday back then, so all they had in the concession stand was hot dogs and hamburgers, so they kind of took a hit on the concessions that day.
You got to do a little. You got to be prepared, man. You gotta,
that's right. You got to know your audience, right?
That's right. You got to know your audience. That's exactly right. Yeah, we actually have had a couple of groups come out over the last 2 years and use it. We kick football, so there's a big kicking camp in town, and they came over and kicked on the field. It was interesting, that football field was used even up until the 70s, I believe. Andrew, is that right? Yep. With some of our local colleges who used it as their home base. So, funny story. The kind of, I don't know if anybody here notices when we do the Daytona 500. We spent a lot of time looking at the grass and creating a design that's very unique for that year. This year, we actually did Firebird 1, the design of Firebird 1.
That was incredible.
But you know that we don't paint that.
Really?
That's 2 variations of ryegrass.
No.
And we have a guy, his job is to manage that field. He came from the Boston Red Sox. He was the groundskeeper up there. He hand seeds all of that. So they lay out the design in October. And the week of Thanksgiving, he's over there and they plug it and he hand seeds the design into that and then grows it. And then as soon as the Daytona 500 is open, as soon as we're crowning the champion for the Daytona 500, him and his team are out pulling all the sprinkler heads off because on Monday morning they clear that entire ball field to get ready for Supercross. So to think about the number of hours that he spends, meticulously messing with the grass and making it look perfect for the 500, it gets all ripped up within 20 minutes.
But it's Daytona. People expect that.
Yeah, that's right.
Looking at the facility from the air, too, it is phenomenal. And up at the NASCAR Hall of Fame, they have an introductory video. And to me, even after all these years, the thing that gets my spine tingling is there's a scene where it must have been in a helicopter or something. They take off, and they come up between turns 3 and 4 early in the morning with a little bit of fog in the air and campfires and that sort of thing, and as you get higher and higher, you just see the expanse of the speedway and that everybody's there to have a great time. And it almost brings tears to my eyes to see that facility. I first laid eyes on Daytona Speedway in December of 1964, and it sounds a little corny, but every time I ride by that, I still get excited, and I still kind of put myself in the place of people that are seeing it for the first time. And it's far more impressive than it was in 1964, but there's still something about it with the heritage and the history. And anybody who ever even thought about getting involved in any form of motorsport, their ultimate goal is to win at Daytona. So I don't think there's any other place in the world that can hold a candle to that.
Yeah, it is truly such an important place. And I was talking to Austin Dillon after he won the 500 this year. And I said, you've now become part of an elite group. You're a Daytona 500 champion, and there's an expectation that comes with that. Mm-hmm. And he said, you never thought about it that way. I said, there's very few people that can ever say they've been able to be in victory lane as a Daytona 500 champion. And with that comes things that we're going to ask you to do and things that you will do as a representative of us. And we expect this out of you. And he said, I understand. I mean, it's revered so much to so many people, the Harley Gerald Trophy and being a Daytona 500 champion, because you look at the people that have won. I mean, you look at Richard Petty, you look at Kelly Yarborough, you look at these folks that have paved the way for us all to have an opportunity to sit and be a part of the sport and be a part of Daytona. They've what's made it special. But I say this all the time, and I mean it. Without the people at Daytona, none of this would have happened. You had to have vision. You had to make it the most special event. Without them, it's just asphalt and metal and concrete.
Right.
It's so for us, it's such an honor and a privilege to be a part of it.
Oh yeah, well, even when the Speedway was being built, you had such a groundswell of support among the local folks, and everyone knew that it was going to be such a benefit to the entire area. In fact, my wife, sitting right over there, having lunch, her uncle was a county commissioner here, and he actually loaned county equipment to Bill France to help build the track. And, of course, you couldn't do that today. But that's the kind of solidarity there was around that project, and it's something that most folks didn't think they'd ever see. And when the drivers first came here in '59, it blew them away. They couldn't believe it. Petty said he came through the tunnel, and he could barely see the first and second turn. It was so far away. Everybody had only seen a half-mile dirt track. So it was a major game changer for all of racing, and it certainly has helped the community over these years.
I mean, what the France family and Daytona and ISC and NASCAR have done for this community is immeasurable. I mean, both financially and otherwise. You know, the support that we get from the drivers and the industry, and it's amazing. And people look forward to coming here. We've had drivers in town the last couple of weeks promoting the Coke Zero Sugar 400 on July 7th, and you know, they talk about, one of them was Chase Elliott, Bill Elliott's son. I mean, he remembers as a little boy coming to Daytona. He said, I don't remember going to a lot of races, but I always remembered coming to Daytona. And I remembered because we'd go onto the beach, but also because of, you know, how bad my dad wanted to win this race. And you're like, man, that, you know, to think that a 23-year-old guy who has that kind of feeling about Daytona and being a part of what we do here it just speaks to how special this place is. And then Eric Jones was in town earlier this week, and we took him by the Archives building, as I spoke about earlier, and we were talking. He said, you know, there's just something about being in town that gets me excited about being part of NASCAR. And they travel every week. I mean, they're going 38 weekends a year. And, you know, I can say, because I've been on that side, there's some racetracks you're like, oh, man, I don't want to go there. But nobody ever felt that way about coming down to the beach. Nobody felt that way. You know, that you obviously the first race of the year, everybody was excited because it's coming to the Daytona 500, but also kicking off the season, you know, you've had a couple of weeks to take a breath and you want to get going with the season. But then in the summer, you know, it's halfway. But then you also get to come down and be on the beach, and then you have the opportunity to be to be in Victory Lane, and everybody in the industry understands how important that is.
You mentioned the archives. Next week, our guest is going to be Herb Branham, the director of the archives. He's also the biographer of Bill France Sr. and Bill France Jr., and also, if you're a tennis fan, he did the biography of Pete Sampras. So he's going to be a very interesting fella that we're going to get to listen to next week. Let's see, we got cross flags now, halfway through the race, and we're going to break for this commercial message.
The caution flag is out. Time for a break. We'll be right back with the Legends of Racing radio show. Racing's original North Turn is our broadcast headquarters. If you're looking for a good drink, great entertainment, and the best in food, they're right on the beach at Racing's original North Turn. Rhonda and Walt invite you to come on down to dinner tonight. Here are a couple of testimonials. These are actual testimonials from people who have enjoyed the North Turn. Been there many times, always great food and drinks, great location on the beach. And another, what a great experience. It's my new favorite restaurant in the Daytona Beach area, Racing's Original North Turn on South Atlantic Avenue. That's A1A in Ponce Inlet, about 3.2 miles south of the Dunlawton Bridge and A1A intersection. It's Racing's Original North Turn, a restaurant, museum, bar, gift shop, live music. That's Racing's North Turn. Racing's North Turn has been voted by you top 10 beach bar 7 years in a row. Next year, they're going for top 5. We're back from where it all began. Racing's original North Turn Beach Bar and Grill. The Legends of Racing radio show continues with your host, Buzz McKim.
And our esteemed guest, Daytona Speedway President Chip Wile. And, yeah, as we mentioned last week, this is an interactive show. We want to have our guests involved. And every week we take a question from someone in the audience. And we have Tony today with what I think is a pretty fascinating question. What do you have for Chip here?
Chip, depending on how the Charlotte Roval race goes, any thoughts to any series running the Roval here at Daytona?
I would never say no. We're promoters, man. We got to think about how we can sell tickets. But I would say this: I think it's going to be interesting to watch how the Roval unfolds this fall. A lot of unknowns there with how they're going to have to set up the cars and what they're going to have to do to make sure that that it's a good event. I think the difference between Charlotte's road course and our road course is the transitions from coming out of the infield road course back on to NASCAR 1, and that transition with the bank, it could cause a real problem just with how the cars are set up, and they without a ride height rule, they run those cars so close to the ground. It would be I don't know how we could do it. Now, that being said, NASCAR is obviously open to looking at rules packages based on, where we are. So, that could be something we could certainly look at in the future. I can tell you that we've had, some internal conversations about would it be an interesting race. Our road course is very different than most. And with the super speedway package, you don't typically put big brakes on those cars because you don't need them. The only time you really need brakes is when you're coming to pit road. So how would you manage the speed the right way and make sure that it's a good show for the fans? I think we're set up certainly with the stadium to be able to do something like that, but you never know. We're all paying very close attention to what's going to happen this fall. I think Marcus Smith's doing a nice job to try something different. He's seen some success out at Sonoma with the road course. So, every racetrack is different. I think that's what makes NASCAR great. Not to say no, but I don't see it in the immediate future.
Interesting. In the mid '70s, NASCAR ran the modifieds during Speed Week, and for the first couple of years, they actually ran a roval course. Of course, the cars were so totally different than what we have now. But they were big open wheel. They set kind of high and all that. And Paul Newman came down, and he ran a Pinto in the first race, and he had made some kind of remark, maybe not the nicest thing to say about NASCAR racing because he was a sporty car guy. Well, it turns out that as they got the green flag and they went into the first turn, Jack Duffy in the last coupe to ever run Daytona, a 37 Chevy coupe dirt car, got on the back of Paul Newman and spun him out. He said, "That'll show you." you don't go talking about our NASCAR guys. But it was fun. And then after a few years, the Speedway figured, well, maybe we'll put them on the high banks and we'll see how that works out. They ran the modifieds for a few years, but they did start out on the road course, though.
Well, I mean, even when I worked on the racing side, we traveled the front ends of the car, 6 or 8 inches, from the straightaway to the corner. You wanted them to have a sealed valence going into the corners and through the corners to be able to help the car turn. But running down the straightaway, you didn't necessarily want them to be sealed off. And now you look at them; they're sealed all the way around. And then you look at the back of the car. I mean, I was in Talladega this year, had an opportunity to spend time in the garage and watched. I mean, they were bottoming out the back ends of the car in the garage area. Just with the no ride height rule, they've really gotten aggressive with how they set these cars up and what they're trying to do. And aerodynamics have become such a critical component of winning races. And the thing we talk about a lot is there's no other sport in the world that the difference between being good, really good, and great is 0.2 of a second. And it just speaks volumes of what NASCAR has done over the years to really close up the competition, and they don't get enough credit for that. I think certainly people are always very quick to be critical of the product, but you think about how close the competition is and what it takes to get you from being good to great. It's you're talking about hundreds or thousands of a second, and I think that just is kudos to NASCAR for their continued work and development on these race cars.
Right. We have a couple folks in the audience that are very specially connected to the Speedway. Don Bach over there. Don was a photographer at the Speedway for 56 years. He also shot on the beach before the Speedway, walking history book. And then another fellow in the back there, Olin Hopes. Olin worked on NASCAR teams back starting in the early 60s, and then he founded the Daytona Beach Street Rod Club, and he's one of the founders of the Turkey Rod Run, which is such a big part of the Speedway. Yeah, so
that's amazing.
Yeah, we have a little bit of royalty here.
Well, we're glad you're here. We're glad you're here. I see you got your ISC shirt on. You're looking good. Thank you for all your hard work on behalf of the Speedway. It means a ton to us all. Do you know Andrew Booth? Did he give you a bunch of grief? All right, good. So we're all on the same page. Hey, listen, this is the kind of guy he is, right? We're sitting up here working hard, and he's back. He didn't even ask if we wanted lunch, but he certainly got himself something. That's typical.
He's going to get his lunch. That's for sure. Yes, sir, buddy. But, I think it says a lot about the Speedway, ISC, and also NASCAR that you have so many people that work there for so long. And look at Lightning Epton. Lightning's 97 years old, still comes to work every day. She started out when the track was first built. Amazing. And
I got a good story. So I take her to lunch. Lightning, if you've never met her and you're here locally, you need to come to the ticket office and meet this amazing woman. She's been part of NASCAR really since the inception. She and her husband moved down with Bill France Sr. and Annie B to Daytona in 1948, and then started working at the Speedway soon thereafter, and then really has been a full-time employee of the Speedway since 1959. 1959. Mm-hmm. And so I take her to lunch once a quarter, and I took her in January and said, hey, listen, I heard, and I want you to verify, but I heard you've never watched the start of a Daytona 500. She said, no, sir, I never have. I said, well, why is that? I said, I'm certain that you've had opportunity. She said, well, Chip, I have a job to do, and my job's to sell tickets. And if I'm watching the Daytona 500, I ain't doing my job. I said, well, that's a fair point, like him. But I think at this point you've earned the opportunity to watch it, and I would like you to be my guest and Betty Jane Francis' suite for the race. And she kind of got teary-eyed. I said, will you do it? She said, I'll do it. I'll do it. And we weren't certain. We were not certain she was gonna be there. So I asked one of our senior leaders on the team to actually physically go get her from the ticket office and take her up to the suite. And I went and spent about 25 laps with her during the race, and it was something I'll never forget. Just how excited she was to be there and to see all of the things that she's been a part of for 60 years, and getting to actually see them in execution was really cool. Mm-hmm. And then a second story, we Mr. France and I surprised her. Her 60-year anniversary was last month, and so Jim and I took her to lunch. She likes to go to P.F. Chang's. She likes P.F. Chang's, so we took her to lunch at P.F. Chang's. And while we had her at lunch, everybody on our team and folks that have had an impact on her, she's had an impact on them, all gathered in the Bill France room across the street on the Speedway property, and we surprised her with a 60-year celebration. And she doesn't miss a beat. 98 years old, she doesn't miss a beat. She walked in, she immediately yelled at me for doing surprising her because she didn't like being surprised, and then she went into this eloquent speech about the Speedway and what it's been, how important it's been, and what to her and her family, and how she's had such a huge impact on her life. And just to think that if I'm alive at 98, and two, I am that sharp and can convey to a group of people when I'm being surprised, how I feel. I'll be doing something good. She's an amazing lady. We're all blessed to have her as part of our family, and she's awesome. She's an awesome lady.
And one of the sweetest souls you'll ever meet. We lost a member of the Daytona Speedway Army this past week, a fellow named Bill Voorhees. Bill was an air traffic controller, retired in 1995. Then he came to work with me in the archive department. Tremendous guy, so organized. We rearranged and reconfigured the entire archive department back then. He was so disciplined and so organized. His father used to drive the little tour Volkswagen van back in the early 60s at the Speedway and did all kinds of different jobs here and there. But Bill passed away with brain cancer this past week, and what a tremendous person, and someone who absolutely dearly loved NASCAR and the Speedway. He used to tell the joke, he knew Marvin Panch very well, the NASCAR driver. After Bill got out of the Air Force, he was a young guy, had a lot of money with him, and Marvin had a boat for sale. So Bill went ahead and bought Marvin's boat, thinking it would probably help him get some girlfriends. But he said, I got to thinking years later, I could have bought Speedway stock for $1 a share back then. I would have been a lot better off buying the stock and forgetting about that stinking boat.
I wish I could have gotten in on that for $1 a share. We also lost Baki a couple of weeks ago. Jim Bakoven, who was such a critical component not only to Daytona but also to NASCAR. And then last month we lost Jim Foster, one of the first Speedway presidents and confidant to Bill France Jr. and Sr. So. And that's unfortunately part of life, but we've all been very fortunate to be able to spend time with these people and to get their knowledge and be able to listen to the stories that they have. And, I think one of the coolest parts about being part of this industry is to be able to sit down with a guy like Richard Petty and just let him talk. Just listen to the stories and the wisdom he has. Our team was in High Point, North Carolina. And we flew out of Greensboro. Well, so did the King and Kyle Petty. And on a number of occasions, our plane was full and they had a seat, so I'd get to fly with them. And to listen to Kyle Petty and his dad, who he calls the king. He doesn't call him dad; he calls him the king, which he should.
Yeah.
But to listen to them go back and forth, and to listen to Kyle tell stories about his childhood, and, running around the country with his dad racing, and in the back of their van or their station wagon. Those are things that you just have such a lasting impact on your life. It's been such a journey, this job.
Yeah, Richard and Kyle don't worry about taking pot shots at each other. One year at one of the banquets here during Speed Week, Kyle got up and gave a very, very eloquent speech. Wonderful. It should have been recorded. He was a wordsmith. And then after the banquet, Richard said, boy, he said, if you could drive as good as you talk, we'll be doing real good.
That's why he's a broadcaster, man.
That's right.
Why he's a broadcaster.
Exactly.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on my motorcycle in my 20s, traveling the country with Kyle, and we always had Jeff Green and his wife, and Matt and Katie Kenseth always went. David Hyatt went. We always had Kenny Schrader. He always rode with us. We had a great group, and I'm 24 years old, getting to spend time with these folks. And, I mean, just to hear the stories, and they weren't racing stories. They were just, hey, you remember when we did that stupid thing? And they'd all be like, oh, yeah, I remember that. I was like, you're so stupid, Kyle. But, just to hear what they would, the stories they had, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, and they're just people. That's all. Well, we're 3/4 of the way through. This is going by way too quick. But we're going to have one more break, and then we'll finish her up.
The caution flag is out. Time for a break. We'll be right back with the Legends of Racing radio show. At Beach Boys Embroidery and Tees, it's all about making you happy. Beach Boys Embroidery can customize your athletic golf apparel, caps, hats, badges, buttons, magnets, backpacks, bags, totes, clocks, watches, and of course, T-shirts. Sure, they're at 2033 South Ridgewood Avenue in South Daytona, and they're waiting for you to call now. 386-255-5880. Beach Boys Embroidery and Tees. We're back from where it all began. Racing's original North Turn Beach Bar and Grill. The Legends of Racing radio show continues with your host, Buzz McKim.
Thank you so much, folks. Wonderful, great having you here. Hope everyone at home is having fun, too. Got to do it again. Got a race coming up. How do folks get tickets?
Yeah, DaytonaInternationalSpeedway.com or 1-800-PIT-SHOP. It's going to be an incredible weekend. We have the largest fireworks display in the Southeast happening at the conclusion of the Coke Zero Sugar 400. It's interesting, typically at the end of the race, after the driver does their burnout and gets out of the car in victory lane, you start seeing people, move out of their seats. You turn around after the Coke Zero Sugar 400, they're all waiting for you to push a button to fire off the fireworks. It's and it goes on for forever. It's an incredible display. And we'll have the Medal of Honor recipients here. We've been doing that tradition now for a decade, where we bring Medal of Honor recipients in town and celebrate them, and we do a luncheon for them and really showcase the heroism that they've shown and the reason that they have that distinct honor. We'll be celebrating, obviously, the Independence Day holiday, and we'll have, obviously the Xfinity race on Friday night, the Coca-Cola 250, which will be an exciting event, and then Saturday, our summer spectacular, the Coke Zero Sugar 400. It'll be interesting. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he was the man last year. He won Talladega and then won here in the summer. It'll be interesting to see if he continues to have that speed, or, if one of these old guys that really been dominating the year. We talk. Harvick's a good friend of mine, and I know how he is. He likes to geek people. He loves the fact that he's the old guy, and he's showing these young boys how to race. But the Stewart-Haas Racing, those Fords have been really fast all year. They were fast down here during Speed Weeks. I thought Ryan Blaney had a shot to win until the very end. We'll see what happens, and maybe Austin Dillon can try to win the double this year. That hadn't happened in a long time. And the thing about plate racing is everything's got to go right. You know, you got to be in the right place. You got to have the right guy behind you pushing you. You can't have anybody trying to make a run coming out of turn 4. It's everything has to line up perfectly for you to have an opportunity to win. And I think certainly we'll see who gets that opportunity here in a couple weeks.
A little trivia here. Does anybody know who drove the pace car for the very first July 4th race at Daytona? Might surprise you. Nope. Walter Cronkite. How about that? Old Uncle Walter. Yeah, he was an amateur sports car driver. He always loved racing of any kind, and Mr. France had him down here, and he drove the pace car. How about that? And yeah, I think it's kind of neat, too, being a historian kind of guy, that you kept that name Firecracker 250 for the Xfinity race.
They fought me on it, man. I love the history of the sport. I mean, I came from Darlington. And I mean, people still call it the Firecracker 400. So when we changed the name, when Coca-Cola wanted to move it back to the Coca-Cola race from Subway, I said we need to keep that Firecracker name. We had a little bit of a debate over it, but we won. Yep. So that's always good.
Well, it was interesting. The race started out as a 250-miler, and after 3 or 4 years, the cars were getting so fast that the race was ending kind of quickly.
Got to sell hot dogs, man.
That's right. Got to sell them hot dogs. And so in 1963, they expanded it to 400 miles, and it's been 400 ever since. And
it's like I tell people all the time, our the 500 and the 400, even from how we program the stadium, how we program the property and the event is very different. It's not, the Daytona 500 is obviously, our Super Bowl, the biggest race that we have on the schedule. And the 400 is really, it's a different event. Obviously, it's very Americana. It's all about celebrating our military and our country's independence. But really, just even our fan. You look at the fans that come to the 400. That's a very different fan that comes to the 500. So really, a great way for folks who haven't been to the racetrack in a long time to come out. The price points are right. For you to come and enjoy a Saturday night at the racetrack, watching these guys go at it for 400 miles.
Yeah, it's great. And under the lights, too. You don't have to worry about all that heat that we used to have
to
endure.
But it's still hot.
Oh, it's still hot?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. You're supposed to be pushing this.
Oh, no, I know. But I can't lie to these people.
What would Mr. France say?
Don't lie to him.
No, we got the whole place air conditioned. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Really. There is a breeze sometimes, Andrew.
That's right.
We got fans in the stadium. We don't typically run them except during the summer race, and they're everywhere. And it does cause a little breeze. But it's interesting, the way I don't know if they meant to do this or not, but there's a natural breeze that kind of blows through the 100 level, and we're out there all the time, just showing people around or doing meetings over there. And if you get hot, you just kind of go stand in the middle, and there is just a natural sea breeze that runs through. It cools you off. So, it's I would encourage anybody here or listening that it still hadn't made their plans. It's going to be an exciting event. Dale Jr. will be back. We haven't announced it yet. I guess I can announce it here since I've already said it. He's going to be doing an event on Friday night in our fan zone with Rutledge Wood. They're going to do a live 30-minute or an hour-long show with drivers, and it'll be kind of his first chance to get back into the booth. I'm excited to see Dale in this chapter of his life. I think he's excited that he's out of the race car and he's still getting an opportunity to talk about the thing he loves the most. Well, maybe not anymore because he has a little girl, and I know how that is. But maybe the thing he loves the second most, which is racing.
Yep. Well, it's funny. Dale Jr. talked about how his father was the winningest driver at Daytona Speedway, but it took him 20 years to win the Daytona 500. And Jr. said that the Monday after the Daytona 500, every year they just gave his dad plenty of room because he was a bear because he lost it again. Got hit by a seagull or vice versa. Flipped. Some year blew a tire. All this kind of stuff. And he finally won, and Dale said, okay, well, it's all right now. He's not going to be such an ogre after the race, but he said that Monday after the Daytona 500 for all those years, he said he was just ill. He was not fun to be around because that's the one he really, really wanted. And so how much it must have meant to Dale Jr. to finally win the Daytona 500.
And then get his second one. Yeah.
Right.
We had him as the Grand Marshal this year for the Daytona 500, and I called him last fall and asked him if he wanted to do it. And his response was, well, hell yeah, I want to do it. What kind of question is that? He said, well, what do you want me to do? I said, well, you got to deliver the command. He said, all right, I'll work on it. And I thought I was standing on pit road, and I wasn't sure how he was going to do it. I wasn't sure if he was, but he nailed it. I mean, he was so excited about doing it, and I said, he was up in the suite. I said, Dale, did you plan on doing that? He's like, man, I couldn't control myself. Like, I felt the energy of the building, and I just stood there, and I didn't even know what I was saying. I just started screaming words, and he nailed it. I said, well, we're going to make you the Grand Marshal every year because you did a fantastic job. But yeah, I'm excited. Him and Amy and Isla are going to be down for the race, and Dale loves this sport as much as anyone, and he recognizes that he's an influencer, and he wants to continue to have a positive influence on the sport. I think he'll do a great job at NBC, really giving his perspective on how the cars handle and what people are seeing. But also, as a fan of the sport, he'll tell it from a fan's perspective, and I think that's what we need. We need that. We need that balance, and his passion for NASCAR is unmatched.
I like the fact that he's a history guy too. He really gets the history.
So it's funny when I was at Darlington, we did the throwback stuff. He would definitely let me know that you don't need to do that. That ain't close. And he was and even with the schemes that they ran on the '88 car, he picked them and he designed them and he was very very involved in the process. And I talked to him a lot about, hey, what do you think about that? He's like, yeah, I wouldn't do that, but maybe look at it this way. He loves that throwback stuff. He loves anything old school.
Yeah, fun. I think that's one of the greatest things that ever happened to Darlington was that throwback weekend, and it's just so much fun, and it brings so many memories back to people. And that's what you want to try to hang on to is your heritage, and you're doing a well of a job.
Yeah, it took I told you earlier, it took about 2 years. So we literally took a grassroots approach to how we wanted to present it. So we went and met with every driver. We went and met with every team. We went and met with every stakeholder. I made more trips to Charlotte, North Carolina over a 9-month period than I ever thought I'd do in my life. But you had to explain why it made sense to each individual person. Because, I've learned through the years that, you have a great idea, but if you can't get everybody to buy in, it's just an idea. And you had to show the teams how they could make it work for their sponsors. And I remember a business manager of a well-known driver at the Daytona 500 in 2015 said, this will never work because you'll never get the sponsors to be able to do it. And I said, well, I'm going to prove you wrong. And I saw him at the race, and I said, I guess I'm a good salesman, or people believe in it. And he's like, you're right. And it was the sport needs that. The sport needs it. And not every other major sport has that opportunity to showcase how they got there. And Darlington's a perfect place for that. Kerry Tharp took my role there, is doing an amazing job. He's got an incredibly talented group of men and women that believe in what they're doing. They all share the same vision, and they're pulling the rope in the right direction.
Oh, yeah, and what's nice about that is kind of like your grandfather's racetrack, more or less. I remember Jim Hunter, who was president at one time of the Speedway, he called it the Fenway Park of NASCAR. And, you don't have the fancy suites and all the bells and whistles. It's just good racing at an old racetrack, and it really kind of takes you back to how it used to be.
There's nothing new about Darlington.
Nope.
Nothing. I mean, you think about like the suites. They're the newest thing there, and they're 30 years old. So, but that's what it's got character, and the racetrack is so hard on these drivers. I remember we took Scott Wimmer there in the 22 Caterpillar car to test. And the day before we left the shop, I looked over, and they were welding a jack handle on the right side door bar. I said, guys, what are you doing? He goes, well, we know he's going to hit the wall. We're just trying to avoid him having to repair it at the racetrack. And sure enough, at lap 2, he went up and tore the whole right side off the car. But that jack handle certainly helped them. They got to finish the test.
Oh, yeah.
It's a battle between man and machine, and you got to manage your tires. You got to do everything right at Darlington to have a chance to win. 500 miles of that place will wear you out.
Oh, yeah. Well, some folks like Cale Yarborough, David Pearson, Jeff Gordon, they love the track. They were extremely successful there. But Kyle Petty, on the other hand, said that the best thing that could happen to that track was to fill the infield up with water and make a fishing hole out of it.
Yeah, I gave him a bunch of grief over that when we moved back to NBC on Labor Day weekend in 2015. He was obviously there, and we did a big parade downtown. And the fans there will not let him forget that he said that. I mean,
really?
most people, as you drive by, they cheer. His car, where he was sitting in, they'd all either throw something at him or boo him or something. He's like, man, I regret saying that to this day because these people hate me. But it's a tough racetrack. It's a neat place. You know, you gotta have good brakes. You gotta have a lot of speed. It's a short track on steroids.
Yeah. A lot of testosterone helps too. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Now, we're going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Okay.
Where do you see racing in 5 years?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Stock car racing is, in my opinion, the greatest form of motorsports in all the world. It's the most competitive. It has a natural appeal and really a broader appeal than some of these other entities. But I think we'll continue to evolve. I think the manufacturers are continuing to evolve with how they're selling their products. But at the end of the day, you know, regardless of if you like it or hate it, you know, NASCAR is the premier motorsports product in the world, and I think it will. I think you'll continue to see ISC and the tracks investing in the fan experience, which will be great. And I think you'll see NASCAR continuing to evolve with, you know, these packages that make the racing as compelling, if not more, than it is today.
That's great. Yeah, because it's such a part of all our lives. You know, we kind of live and breathe it. You know, once in a while you run into some speed bumps, but you know, the sport marshals on, and it's going to be just fine. So we just can't thank you enough for being here.
It's been a blast,
really
man. Thank you so much. This has been fun. It's great to be out on the beach and be with you. You're a legend in our sport. You know a lot about a lot. Your wife's here, man. I got to make sure I build you up a little bit. And thanks to all you for having lunch. It's been a pleasure to spend an hour with you. And I'm going to go see if Andrew Booth will let me eat lunch before we go back.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Give me a thumbs up. Thank God.
Now, next week, our guest is going to be Herb Branham, the director of the archives at International Speedway Corporation. And we'd like to thank Patrick Sullivan from Homewood Suites. Great breakfast there, too. Rhonda and Walt from the North Turn, the Beach Boys Embroideries, and Shane Stanton, and our beloved Grand Poobah, Mike Multane. So how about a big round of applause here for Chip Wile. Fantastic.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great weekend.
Awesome.
10 seconds.
The Legends of Racing radio show originates live from the very spot where beach racing began, Racing's North Turn Beach Bar and Grill. Join us next time for the Legends of Racing radio show with Buzz McKim.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
you. If my wife didn't run away. I'm sure. Huh? Yeah, we can have everybody up here. That's fine. No, actually, Mike, Bill, and Rhonda and I, from last week we weren't here. So, I know. I always want to take some with all the guys that appear here.
Oh, heavens, yes. Put it in your